Welcome to the channel and welcome to today's video. Right now, a lot of you, and if not all of you, have found out, unless you're raising your own chickens, but you've probably heard that egg prices are soaring, which in return means more people want to buy their own chickens, want to raise their own chickens, get their own eggs. And if that's the case, this video is for you. So if you're looking into getting chickens for the first time, you're a beginner, you really don't know where to start, I'll kind of go over the basics with you, and then you can get a better idea of what it actually takes and what you're gonna need in order to raise those chickens. Whether you get pullets or you're actually gonna get chicks and raise them all the way up until their first egg. So before we jump into that, I'll go over a quick overview of my coop, the run, and everything that's kind of involved with the setup I have here. So the run here is, I believe, around 20 feet long, and it is cattle panels with some wire over the top of that because these holes are obviously too big, and then nothing else can get in there. The watering system we have is a rainwater barrel system with a valve on the bottom, hose connection, and that is followed with the gutter up at the top, which runs into this little bowl here, which has a float in it. So that provides our water. We have a clean outdoor here. So the coop is 6 foot wide by 12 foot long. We have 3 sets of nest boxes of 4. We also have these mats that can easily be cleaned, taken out. I used to do pine shavings, but that didn't really fare out the best. The chicken house is mounted on a hay wagon running gear with treated 4x4 posts running the length. And this is a full solar system as well. You can see the solar panels up there. So we have lighting in here. We have our roosts, and we have our feeder, which actually needs filled. And this is another 44-gallon trash can with PVC fittings in the bottom. Seems to be a little bit less mess that way. So that's the overview of my coop. Now let's jump into basics to start raising your own chickens. So to start out with raising some chickens, you're obviously gonna need some chickens for starters. But before you can even get to that point, you're gonna obviously need to get an enclosure, some fencing if you wanna do a run. You could build your own, so you're gonna need lumber to do that. There's many different ways that you could go about venturing into making and building your own chicken house or chicken coop, whatever you wanna call it. Some people have used pallets, which you can make that way, which is a lot cheaper. Sometimes there's a little bit more work involved with that, but it just depends. You can buy a pre-made chicken house from many different online sources, Tractor Supply, Rural King, one of those. And a chicken coop, just for a basic chicken coop that will house about 6 chickens, is probably gonna cost you around $400. That's with nothing else. So that doesn't include your feed, your water system, or your feeder. So on top of that, you have to buy a water and a chicken feeder. A 7-pound chicken feeder is around $10, and a 1-gallon water is around $15. So that gets you basically to the point of being able to feed and water the chickens and house the chickens. Now, if you're going to buy them as chicks, that's a whole different ball game, because now you have to provide a heat source for them, or essentially a brooder, which is where you house them, heat them up, keep them warm. Obviously they can't get cold. If you're gonna do that, that's obviously gonna require some power, electricity, and you're gonna need the light bulb, which typically the lights I think come, actually I do not think the lights come with bulbs. So you have to buy the bulbs separately, and you could probably put them in the coop and just let them out whenever they get bigger, fully feathered. So you wouldn't have to really necessarily buy something different to do that. However, there is that option. Typically chicks, depending on the breed, anything like that, you're looking at around $5-ish, give or take. And sometimes if you go later in the season, you can get some deals. It just depends. So on average, we're just gonna say, for the sake of numbers, around $5. And if you get 6 of them, considering your house can hold 6, that's 6 hens only, no roosters. Then you have to buy feed. And feed can start, if you buy your chickens as pullets or already laying hens, you're looking at about $16 to $18 for a 50-pound bag of feed. Now, I would recommend in that instance going to your local feed mill, seeing if they have 100-pound bags available. A lot of times that's cheaper than your traditional box stores. And the feed will last a little bit longer, obviously, that way, because you're basically essentially almost getting double the feed for the price, give or take. It obviously depends your location, stuff like that. So chicks are around $5 a piece, give or take, as I said. Laying hens, pullets can range anywhere from, at minimum, probably $12 to all the way up to $20, $25 per bird. So you're gonna have a big variance there if you're gonna get chickens that are already laying, which is, you're ahead of the ball game at that point. You don't have to raise them up, feed them chick starter, chick grower, have them under a heat lamp, stuff like that. So you will be ahead of the ball game in doing that, but just know ahead of time that that's gonna cost you a very wide range, depending on especially the breed that you want, where you're buying them, and maybe you can find somebody who's looking to disperse some of their flock and they're willing to get rid of them for a little bit cheaper. With all of that, you have your birds, you have 6 chickens, and if you get some high laying capacity birds that are gonna typically lay 1 a day, maybe 1 every other day, especially as they get older, you're probably gonna average about 6 eggs per day. For a normal family, small family, that's probably more than enough. So with all that, you have your chickens, your feeder, your water, your feed, and your enclosure or your coop. You're around $500 just to get started into it. Now, once you obviously start, you're settled in, you have everything set up, you have your birds, now you have to continually buy feed. You're obviously spending $16. 6 birds will probably, 50 pounds will probably last six birds a decent amount of time. I don't honestly know how long that is because I have a lot more than 6 birds. A lot of them are in the house currently, but it varies too. Some people will give them other things. We give corn, oats, scratch feed, wheat, anything like that, sunflower seeds, all that stuff is great. Mealworms. It's all added cost, especially if you're gonna go out and start buying it for yourself. So that's just something else to consider. But at minimum to start, you're looking at around $500 just to start. And that's not continually feeding them, so on and so forth. Now, in no way, shape, or form am I trying to discourage anyone from getting their own chickens, because it is a very rewarding and fun process, especially for kids. But just know that there is a lot of work involved with it. You have to keep the coop clean. You have to obviously feed them, water them, make sure all that stuff is taken care of each and every day. And you obviously have to collect eggs, which is obviously everyone's favorite part of having chickens. A popular misconception with having chickens is that they will eat anything that you throw in there, and that is true to an extent. We have thrown all kinds of different scraps, lettuce, fruits, you name it, stuff that we're kind of throwing away from the house, and the chickens will devour it. But that is not enough for them and doesn't give them all the nutrients that they need. So you can't just feed that kind of stuff in order to have them producing to their capacity. I have had chickens for about 10 years now, and one thing that has really stuck out to me with having chickens is the biggest thing that is your enemy against having chickens is predators. Now, depending where you live, this could vary and change. I live in Pennsylvania, so we have coyotes, fox, raccoons, possum, things like that. They love to feast on chicken, and raccoons especially. So I have lost a lot of birds over the years with different fencing styles, and I've experimented with different things. And this so far has been the best. And now they're all talking. They are agreeing. One of the biggest things to make sure that you have, if you do plan to put in a run for them, similar to what we have, or just put in fence like this style, which works fine. The only thing you have to worry about is obviously predators. Now, this is electrified. You could do that or do electro netting. But then you have aerial predators that can come down, hawks, eagles, stuff like that. So if you do plan to build your own chicken house and your own chicken run or fenced in enclosure, just bear in mind as you're building it, you don't want anything to get in and you don't want anything to get out. That is the safest, most secure way to not have anything get your chickens and not have your chickens get out and running around or scratching in your garden or your flower beds. Chickens will and they do love to scratch and mulch. So if you have mulch around your house or anywhere on your property, they will scratch it. You will also have to provide them with a source of bedding, whether that's shavings. Pine shavings is what I like to use, and I do a deep litter method with that. Now, if you're only getting 6 chickens and you're going small scale and you're buying a chicken house from like Tractor Supply, a bag of shavings will last you quite a long time. And that is included in the price, around $500 that I did give earlier. Another big thing for raising chickens, especially if you're going to be building your own chicken coop, is make sure you have plenty of ventilation. You need that airflow to flow through there because chicken manure can be very strong smelling and it burns your nose pretty quick the minute you go in there if there's no ventilation. So just make sure you have ventilation. If you do have means to free range your chickens, which essentially means they can roam anywhere and everywhere that they want on your property, and you don't have a lot of predators, I definitely highly recommend that because there's nothing cooler than seeing chickens run around and just scratch all over the place. However, bear in mind that if you have any sort of predators, there's a good chance that some of your chickens may end up disappearing. To recap, you need a chicken house, chicken feeder, chicken waterer, chicken food, and some sort of run. Or if you buy one of the ones from Tractor Supply or online, they're kind of an all-in-one unit that kind of has a little bit of fencing underneath, so you don't have to do anything extravagant like this. And before you do any of that stuff, especially if you're living like in close to the city or towns, you definitely want to check with your borough or municipality about local codes on having chickens. A lot of them are okay as long as you don't have roosters. So double check and make sure there's no regulations before you go ahead and spend $500 just to get started. Well, I hope that helped if you're looking to get into raising chickens, to have your own farmed fresh eggs, and then you know where they came from and you know what they're being fed. I hope that helps you make a decision whether you want to take that leap, take that journey. Fair warning, you will start out with 6 chickens and you will probably end up with more. I hope this helped and I hope it was informative. I hope I didn't forget anything. If you have any other questions, be sure to let it in the comment section below. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and I'll see you next time.